And I'm Joe Kirk,
your host for Searching for Service. Tune in to Rotary's influential show and podcast, sharing touching stories of service locally and abroad.
We bring you weekly guests that connect, inform, and inspire our listeners on all things service.
We highlight diverse service opportunities that appeal to both Rotarians and people driven to serve in their communities.
Tune in Sundays at 3 p.m. or anytime via podcast. It's time
to stop searching
and start serving.
True healing happens from within. When you learn to tap into the innate wisdom of your body, transformative healing can begin. Discover the intimate relationship between your mind, body, and nervous system. Learn simple practices that create transformative changes in your body and being. Join us at resolvepainguru.com for your journey into healing from pain, exhaustion, and stress. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's Resolve Pain Guru.
Dr. Stefano Sinacropi, an orthopedic spine surgeon and wellness evangelist, hosting the brand new Recharging the Human Battery show on AM 950 radio. My co-host Mandy Dickey and I will delve into various health topics ranging from medicine to nutrition to exercise, emerging technologies, and yes, some way out there stuff. We'll provide a balanced view of today's landscape, helping listeners navigate its complexities and hoping to change the way you think about your health. Recharging the Human Battery debuts on July 6th and airs Saturdays at 11 a.m.
Hi, Matt McNeil here. I've had people ask if my son Charlie took our RAV4 from Rudy Luther Toyota on a cross-country road trip, and indeed he did. He headed west and saw the national parks of South Dakota, Montana, Utah, California, Arizona, Colorado, and then back home. He drove 5,000 miles. The RAV4 performed great, and he had a fantastic time. Not only was the RAV4 great on long highway stretches, but it easily handled the back roads too. And with the RAV4 hybrid, the fuel efficiency was incredible, saving him a ton. Test drive the RAV4 today at Rudy Luther Toyota, 5 miles west of Minneapolis on 394.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Mostly cloudy overnight with a low of 62, then Wednesday sunshine with a high of 84. Enjoy the best of summer with an Eat Local Minnesota restaurant or food purveyor. They're perfect for any occasion, a night out, or a great meal at home. Check out the list of Eat Local Minnesota restaurants and food purveyors at eatlocalminnesota.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hitting cut again.
Because all the hippies are trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. We discuss local, national, and Native news and events. And as you know, Chujunk, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
Yes, you are right, Dega. This portion of the show is supported by Native American Community Clinic on Franklin Avenue in Minneapolis, honoring health and tradition.
Well, we have a jam-packed show here, but Haley, I want to start out with Leonard Peltier. They denied parole to a survivor of genocidal Indian boarding schools as he struggles to survive this unjust incarceration. That's from Nick Tilson, Indian Collective President and CEO. What else do we have? This is just, you know, I listened to the show prior to us, and he said that Leonard was a convicted murderer, and that's not true. He was convicted of aiding and abetting in the murder of these 2 FBI agents. And I always say, well, the aiding and abetting of the murder of George Floyd, those police officers got 2 years, not 47 years.
That's a really good point. And Leonard is not in prison for the murder. He is in there for aiding and abetting. And
Right.
we've had Rachel Dion Thunder from Indigenous Protectors Movement in the Twin Cities here on in the past to discuss kind of like why Leonard's in there in the first place. And when the people who were going to be charged or they were trying to charge with murder didn't end up serving anything. So what was he exactly aiding and abetting? We're unsure. But this is, kind of something from the FBI or the federal government to kind of show us that, hey, this is what happens when you try to, stand up against us. And this is kind of like a political prisoner pawn situation. And it's really unfortunate that, Elder Leonard is unfortunately still being denied again and again and again.
Well, we thought Clinton was going to pardon him. That's how long this charade with the FBI and the government over Native Americans and especially Leonard Peltier has been going on. Indian Collective also said they will continue to demand freedom for Leonard Peltier as his attorneys file for an appeal on this decision and push for the grant of clemency from President Biden. And that's one thing we really have to talk about. And here's a interesting thing for our listeners out there. If you want to take action and support Free Leonard Peltier campaign, it's hashtag Free Leonard Peltier. And also text Free Leonard Peltier now to 50302 to receive latest updates and join the movement to Free Leonard Peltier. So again, this is an upsetting day. I'm not shocked. I'm really saddened that we still have to deal with this oppression through the federal government and all the governments around here. But being a third or fourth class citizen that Native Americans seem to be falling under all the time, and it's a tragic thing. And I don't know, it started, I think, with Wendy years ago saying Free Leonard Peltier at the end of the show. And Haley, I know you do it now. And we really mean it. It's not just words, and pretty disgusted.
Yeah. This whole kind of week, I'm just really disappointed with how things have turned out. But this is coming from Kinship News on Instagram. The U.S. Parole Commission announced that Leonard Peltier won't have another hearing until June of 2026. At the time of his next hearing, Peltier will be 81 years old.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we're saddened here at Native Roots Radio, and I guess that's all we can really talk about now. We got our guest on here, our friend Ruth Buffalo, and Ruth, welcome to Native Roots Radio. And I just want to say I want to introduce you. This is Ruth Buffalo, President and CEO of Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center here in Minnesota. Welcome, Ruth.
Hi, Dosha. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we were talking some sad news. I don't know if you'd want to comment or not. With Leonard Peltier being denied parole again, and so it's a sad day here on Native Roots Radio.
Yeah, I agree. For sure, it's a sad day. Yeah, I just felt like I had to leave work early to get out of the office. Pretty heavy feeling, pretty disappointing, and just super disappointing in so many different ways. Being a North Dakotan, or what is considered present day North Dakota, the DNC, we put forward a resolution back in September of 2022 that passed the full DNC body, urging President Biden to grant Leonard clemency. And then it's just, disappointing to hear that a Democrat former state legislator who is a Democrat, who is a Biden-appointed U.S. attorney representing North Dakota, made it a point to go down to Florida and provide opposition testimony against Leonard's parole. And so just disappointed on so many levels. And where's the justice? It's just disappointing, but it is testament to what many people face and continue to face, especially in North Dakota.
Yeah, and good words there. And it's perplexing. This is 2024, and again, we talked about how he's not in there for murder. And I talked about the George Floyd's people that are in there for the same charge and are only in for 2 years and aiding and abetting, and he's in there 47 years now for the same thing. It's just ridiculous and heartbreaking.
On so many different levels, I think the facts are that, Indians, American Indians, the first peoples of these lands, we continue to be targeted in every level of governments. Incarceration rates show that it's a fact, and that even during the pandemic, we had, tribal elders who were denied compassionate release, and yet others were not, and so it's unfortunately another example of the ongoing challenges that tribal communities face, and so it's I think Leonard on one of our visits would say, like, the Indian Wars never ended, and
Right.
this is facts. This is exactly it. It's the wars have never ended against our people.
Yeah, and it's come in so many different forms, from boarding school to smallpox blankets. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And we still have that subtle thing going on with sports teams still that have Chiefs and Blackhawk names that really are demeaning and put us down. And it's there for our children. It's there for us to see, and it's a subtle reminder that we're not included. So today's just an example of that.
I agree. This is more of like a blatant, loud, clear message, sending a message to all of us that, we must be good little Indians and stay in line. And how dare we try to stand up for our rights? And, with boarding schools, relocation, forced sterilization, and many other ways, that continue today through lateral violence, it's all there by design and continues to contribute to genocide.
We're here with Ruth Buffalo, Minnesota Indian Women's Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center here in Minneapolis, and we'll be right back after this short break.
I heard sex trafficking happens a lot in Indian country. What is that?
Here are some of the real reasons why sex trafficking happens in Indian country. Unequal gender roles that were forced on us by colonization. Communities don't have enough resources. Silence around domestic and sexual violence. Lack of attention and justice for missing and murdered Indigenous people. There's a lot of behavior that keeps our communities out of balance. These are just a few true reasons why Native communities are targeted by traffickers. When these acts of violence happen in our communities, it opens us all up for exploitation.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
J&S Bean Factory is a Native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
Hi, this is Angela Warner for Warner Selling Appliance. Do you have a dishwasher that doesn't really wash your dishes, so you have to? Or a refrigerator that kind of keeps your milk cold and you've just been waiting for that right time to buy? Well, right now, Warner Stellian has the lowest prices of the season, with exclusive savings like free dishwasher installation on brands like Bosch and an instant bonus for each additional appliance you buy for up to $1,000. See what I mean at warnerstellian.com.
This is Leonard Peltier. I am in Coleman 1 U.S. Penitentiary, and I'm listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awakened. This is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Native Concrete and Masonry. Check out their work at nativeconcretemasonry.com and give Chuck a call at 612-597-0421.
Hey, we're here with Ruth Buffalo, President and CEO of Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center here in the Twin Cities. And, I can't help but be blue today, but there's things happening. We have to take 3 steps forward, sometimes take 2 back. And I know your work with the Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center is something to be marveled at. And let's talk a little bit about that today.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, the staff at MIWRC are amazing, and they continue to do amazing work. We have the traditional healing, traditional birthing program that is hosting a sweat lodge tonight in St. Paul. So we have some new staff on board, and it's really beautiful and amazing to have great staff, that are here to assist the community. We just had a staff monthly potluck and staff lunch today, monthly all staff meeting and a potluck. So lots of good things happening, continuing to plug away at fundraising. And I think with the pandemic and the ARPA funds dissolving, it has impacted a lot of organizations nationwide. And so we're trying to meet that, fulfill that funding deficit. And so, calling on all hands on deck, celebrities, tribal casinos, tribal nations, community partners and foundations to help us make sure that we can continue doing the good work and serving the community, because we're approaching our 40th year anniversary, September 16th. So please save the date, mark your calendars. We have some amazing lineup of events and activities that day, and looking forward to that. And yeah, we're also starting community monthly meetings. We had our first one last week. Last Tuesday. It was amazing. And so it's just a time to give updates to the community and just let the public know that our doors are open and they'll continue to stay open.
I always want to bring up too how to get a hold of you. And I'm wondering too, I was thinking of this too, Ruth, is that do you do paid speaking engagements too? For Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center? Is there a way to get a hold of you for that too?
Myself? Yeah, yep, for sure. Yep. Definitely, yep, open to that. And yeah, for sure.
And then how do we get a hold of you through Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center?
Yep, you can email MIWRC socials at miwrc.org.
Awesome. I always want to remember to do that, because that's a question people ask when they say, well, you didn't give the address or the phone number or the website. And I'm going, well, I'm still working. This is my first year, 8 years in a row of being a radio host.
Yeah.
Really.
Yep. I'm at rbuffalo at miwrc.org as well.
Cool. And, you have job openings too and things like that to be able to get on there and look it up. It's exciting that you're having a sweat here in St. Paul too, down the street from me. So I'm excited that that's happening here. And it's just good medicine that you guys are doing and all the things you've been doing for 40 years.
Yes, the organization has been doing amazing work, like you mentioned, for 40 years, and just hoping to continue to, nourish and support the staff and the organization so that it continues to be open 7 generations ahead. We just now brought on 5 new board members as well. So the board is expanding. We're hiring new staff. We'll have 2 new drop-in center staff that will be starting on Monday, July 8th. And for those that aren't familiar, the drop-in center came into fruition after many community conversations that believed there was an unmet need in the community for women who are unhoused and our trans relatives, but we don't turn anybody away. And so you can stop by the drop-in center. I don't want to butcher the name of it, mispronounce it, but it's the drop-in center led by Dawn LaRock, and many of our unhoused women go there for a safe place, a warm shower, and a warm meal, and get connected to resources. And so I had the opportunity to spend some time down there, help out, and so we're working on all of us getting cross-trained. But it's heavy heart work, to not. So it's just, it's a good, healthy, nourishing, nurturing space. And it's hard not to walk away feeling like you need to do more, or you feel just feel for our relatives who are out on the streets. Many come there to get a shower, get resources, and just a safe space to be, and a safe space to sleep for a couple hours, because many of the women that come in through those doors have been up all night, without, just for their own safety. And so a lot of the phone calls that we filled at MIWRC are focused on housing needs. We have a housing manager who helps people with funds from Hennepin County to prevent evictions. But we are working on, whoops, did I freeze?
Yeah, just for a second. You're good.
Oh, okay. So we're working on filling or, meeting these, some of the gaps we have in our system that include trying to help people find housing, because that's an area. So we've been applying for a lot of funding, a lot of grants. And so we're hoping to expand our housing program, because there's an overlap in every single one of our programs and departments. And at the heart of it is addressing the social determinants of health, the basic needs, and housing is front and center as one of the top needs for all of our relatives out there. So housing, just really want to stress the importance of housing and public safety. It's interesting because the response time down where MIWRC is located is comparable to res-like response times, which is very slow, which is kind of striking to see in a very big metro urban area, so there's some grave concerns, and we're all trying to help and, amplify and uplift the existing structures and those who have been doing the work for decades, but definitely a need for more resources for sure.
Definitely. Is there a place where someone can volunteer to come down and volunteer? Because that sounds like a heavy lift for anyone to help our unsheltered relatives. That's it's crazy that this is 2024 and we're still dealing with this.
Yes, for sure. We definitely welcome volunteers. You'll have to fill out paperwork, and kind of go through a screening process, but for sure we welcome volunteers, and we're also, cognizant of not wanting to re-traumatize or re-trigger or remind our client relatives of past traumas too. So we take that into consideration and handle everything that we do with great care. So our staff are super amazing. We're thankful to have new staff on board in the traditional healing program or department to help foster a really loving, caring, nurturing, healing space at MIWRC.
Yeah, it's just really good medicine, and people out there support any way you can to this great organization. Every time I talk to you, Ruth, I hear more of the things that you guys do for the community, which is just amazing. And but we need help with funds, and we need help with volunteers. And please, if you feel like helping and volunteering, please reach out. And if you can't get a hold of them, get a hold of us, and we can get a hold of Ruth or somebody at Minnesota Indians Resource Center, Women's Resource Center, and Haley will do that.
I would love to.
Right on. Yeah. So what we got a minute or so left, Ruth. Any last words here? Again, it's a sad day, but also, like I say, we have to take 2 steps back. We take 3 forward, and the 3 forward is talking to you and about your great organization and what it does for our community.
Yes, definitely. I think just it's important. My heart is with Leonard's family, his loved ones, because it's, they are directly impacted by this decision. And so it's important to hold Leonard and his family, his loved ones in prayer, and to continue, sending them good thoughts and good vibes and prayers, and to, be good to one another and continue to take action and take courage from where you're at. And we all need to stay united and stay together and continue pushing forward. And unfortunately, yes, I think Indian people are some of the most resilient people on this earth. And this is why. Here's another example as to why. You get the wind knocked out of you, you get knocked down, you get knocked down, but you didn't get knocked out. You got to get back up and continue pushing forward for all of us.
Right on. Hey, thank you so much, Ruth Buffalo, for being on as always. And we'll talk to you really soon. Thanks again.
Yeah, Matsugidads.
We'll see you. Hey, Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. We'll be right back after this short break with Heather Keeler, State Representative. Oh, wow.
Minnesotans age 65 plus might qualify for Health Partners Minnesota Senior Health Options. The plan includes personal support, coverage for medical, prescription drugs, and dental, plus over 30 extra benefits. Eligibility information is available at healthpartners.com/oneplan. Health Partners is a health plan that contracts with both Medicare and the Minnesota Medical Assistance Medicaid program to provide benefits of both programs to enrollees. Enrollment in Health Partners depends on contract renewal.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States.
And 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected.
Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf.
Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy.
As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired.
Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Howl! Our veterans need you.
There are more than 8 million enrollees in healthcare at the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Veterans from previous generations.
And veterans from today's wars.
Challenging medical conditions.
And more women returning than ever before.
Are redefining how care is provided.
Serve those who served our nation.
Bring your medical and healthcare skills to VA. America's heroes need you. Visit vacareers.va.gov.
Bonjour, hello. My name is Wabin. I am an enrolled member of the White Earth Nation, descendant of the Navajo Nation, and co-chair of the Indigenous Employee Resource Group with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. MnDOT is hiring for a variety of positions from road maintenance to accounting and more. We offer great benefits. For more information or to set up a one-on-one resume and application assistance, visit mn.gov/careers, or you can text or call 612-257-2388. 612-257-2388.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
Is your remote workforce putting your company at risk? Cyber criminals are targeting your employees with COVID-19 inspired emails and attacking businesses like yours. Hi, Mark Sommerfeld from Rymark. Rymark has the tools and expertise to enable your employees to work securely from home. If you need help getting your staff to work remotely and securely, call 651-328-8900 or go to rymarkit.com. That's 651-328-8900. 8900 or rymarkit.com.
Crooner's Supper Club invites you to enjoy drinks, a delicious dinner, and live music from both big-name local and national artists in a wide array of styles. Before or after your show, check out the new Maggie's Lounge, a perfect spot to visit with friends. It's open Wednesdays through Sundays beginning at 4:30 with cocktails and light fare. And you don't need a ticket to enjoy the great atmosphere of Maggie's. Crooner's Supper Club off Moore Lake and Highway 65. A little piece of old school nightlife in the 21st century.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Mostly cloudy overnight with a low of 62, then Wednesday sunshine with a high of 84. Enjoy the best of summer with an Eat Local Minnesota restaurant or food purveyor. They're perfect for any occasion, a night out, or a great meal at home. Check out the list of Eat Local Minnesota restaurants and food purveyors at eatlocalminnesota.com.
Anine, I'm Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and you are listening to Native Roots Radio.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, we're here with our other friend, Heather Keeler, state representative. And did you catch that, state representative? I didn't say state senator or governor.
Or any of it. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I always try to give you more credit, and but you deserve a lot. And we really love having you on Native Roots Radio. You have a lot of good things to say, and you're very articulate, and I really appreciate you spending time with us, Heather.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You talk about like how I speak, and I was in a conversation with one of my friends the other day, and we were talking about like, especially kind of powwow season when we go back home, there's always that like home slang that comes back out, when we go back home. And then you realize how much we do have to shift how we show up in the world to be able to walk, in the outside world or the off reservation world or the urban Indian community. And it's kind of sad, that I can't really show up the way that I do with my relatives and in my community and probably in my most authentic way. But we have to pull ourselves together because we know that we have to work 4 to 7 times harder than anybody else. And that starts with being able to speak in a way that sounds like I'm educated, like I know what I'm talking about, because often just being native in these spaces isn't enough. Or if we sound too native, that's instantly connected to being uneducated, which I don't think is true. But yeah, so one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I'm glad that you kind of said that, was this idea of how education plays such a role in our life and how it forces us to kind of shift who we are to show up in the bigger world.
Well, really, really good point too. And it's fun. I was going to ask you before you said that to talk a little native, like, point over there with your lips and, all those things that we do, but it's really good point. And it's something that it definitely is there. And it's fun too, because I don't know, is it a difference between the urban and the res Indian too? Because I know the closer I get to my tribe land, the more resi I get.
But yeah, I mean, I think there probably is. I don't know. I think that's not kind of yes, I'm sure it's all different. It's how we talk with our families and our community. It's just crazy how different we do have to get out in the world. But and I wish our education systems allowed us a little bit more space to be authentic. And that's why, like, I really love our tribal colleges and what we're doing in Minnesota around higher education with our tribal colleges, especially Red Lake. I know we saw you guys at the opening that they had in Minneapolis. But hopefully that starts to allow us to be more authentic in our education spaces in general.
Yeah, and I just have to give you a lot of credit too for what's happening in educational wise. And here with Red Lake specifically, they had nothing. The leaders of Red Lake had nothing but great things to say about you and the support that you have. And it's a double-edged sword because we need to be in these places, but these places are hard, and how authentic we have to be, like even just in speaking.
Yeah, I mean, the work is really, really hard. I think being a politician in general or an elected official, as you know, Robert, we talk a lot about the extra stresses it puts on us. But when we're standing up for one of the most vulnerable, most beautiful communities as our indigenous population, it just is so much harder. And we don't have the longevity in us. I see some of my colleagues that were retired after 20, 28 years of service. Like there's no way my mental health, my emotional, my physical, self can do this job for that long. And so representation absolutely matters, but that means we need to have a pretty deep bench. And that means, we need people now starting to think about how they can step into these spaces of advocacy, because we're seeing in Minnesota, Jamie Becker Finn is retiring. And those are big shoes, to try to fill. And we are just not sure we're able to do that quick enough as we're in the momentum to really build a robust tribal relations community here in Minnesota. And so if you're listening to this, I kind of always challenge everybody to push outside your own comfort zone, because generations need us at these tables. It's not just for the offense and the fancy bills we get to carry. It's really about the defense and what we have to do to protect our sovereignty, what we have to do to really protect who we are as a people, as a whole. And so I hope at some point, in some place, in some area of Minnesota, Wisconsin, wherever our listeners are, you see value in maybe stepping up and having some courage to run in these spaces that we absolutely need you to be in.
Well, that goes back to, we talked about this before when we were doing the COVID stuff on Sundays, the Sunday Symposium, and all these great leaders across the country were coming on, and there was rumblings about a person named Heather Keeler who was thinking of becoming a school board person, and everyone was excited when they heard that you became run for state representative. I remember that, and we got you on, I think, the next week. But how exciting for us, and what was that process, and how can we duplicate a process like that where we can get more young natives in the political realm?
First of all, I appreciate the reference to me being young. I'm going to hang on to that, because some days, I'm not feeling that young, but, and I also maybe wouldn't use like my example as the, as the footprint, because it was by total accident. Honestly, like I was just an advocate in my community. I was an Indian education liaison, trying to go to school to do something bigger in the world. I knew that I had to be at tables, and I had to have educational degrees to do that. And so I was going to school for my master's in educational leadership and did my practicum on barriers to academic success outside of academic rigor. And that's where I started to listen to my community and find out that lack of representation, homelessness, and food insecurities were a major issue in Moorhead. And went in and thought, I'm going to run for school board. And I tell this story a lot, and it's such a crazy, silly story, but there was just some white guys that were going to run for the House. And to be honest, I'd never been invited to the Capitol. I really had not known what the difference between Congress and my state rep and what city council did. Like nobody really talked to us about what those roles were. But I knew that my community had said to me months earlier that representation mattered. And I sort of figured, I have a high regard and appreciation for white straight guys. I just think we have enough of them in the political landscape that I thought I should maybe at least run so my community had an option to vote for a woman or an indigenous person. And then I won, and the reality kind of kicked in. And it was hard. It's hard. It was hard to navigate, but I feel like after 4 years, I know where the bathrooms are. I know how to navigate my mental health a little bit better. I know how to travel back and forth and take care of myself. And so I feel like I'm setting myself up to be a little bit better. So the Heather I was on those symposiums, I've learned a lot, and actually love to mentor incoming individuals who are considering running, because I think we need to have honest conversations about this work rather than glorifying the power piece of it. But really the presence to be able to show up for our people and our community is the beauty in serving, I think.
I'm going to say this out loud, and I've been thinking about this as we're talking about it. Our friends at Native American Community Development Institute, who really support a lot of organizations through grants and things like that, needs to probably reach out to Two Feathers and really partner in that mentorship and get more Native and women elected. And I know that's part of your deal, and also them, and we can get you two groups together and really do some damage here, and we still have time. We have like 4 months before the next election.
Yeah. I think honestly, some of it even steps back to like encouraging people to expand their education in where they are because, you have to learn and really be able to understand the solutions to the issues that we're advocating for. It's one thing to yell around about something we don't like. It's another thing to deeply educate yourself about the economics around it, the impacts on it, the long-term impacts on generations. And so I think when we go to school, it expands our brain to think a little bit differently, and it allows us the opportunities to end up in spaces that maybe we wouldn't have been in if we stayed in our circles. And so I think advocacy and standing up in spaces like this also means we need to explore the opportunities of higher education. And I know money is always an issue with that. I know I'm sending my son off to college, but there's tons of scholarships and opportunities for Native students to go to school. And I just want to also, encourage that we look at that and how we can expand our intellectual knowledge to enter into these spaces with really brilliant solution focused ideas.
And it's a thing that's been happening slowly over the years. 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, we didn't have as many educated doctors, lawyers, and teachers like we do now. But it's still slow moving, and I agree 100% because I'm come from the education realm too, and it's so important to have students one see somebody like you or lieutenant governor that look like them in leadership roles. I can't say that enough.
Yeah, I mean that goes back to like I love when we have tribal schools or tribal programs come to the Capitol to spend time with us, and I will always do my best to clear my calendar to spend time with youth, but particularly Native youth, because I talk a lot about what the invisibility of us does to us in spaces. It subliminally tells us we don't belong. So, I never saw teachers who looked like me, which told me I could probably never be a teacher or a doctor or different things. And so, being able to tell my story with our kids really allows them the ability to see us in these spaces. And I remember there was this little girl, she was like 8 years old, and was so excited to be there. And she was like crying in the corner. And I went over and I talked to her, and she's like, "You look just like all my aunties, but you're doing this really cool job." And I was like, that's exactly what this is all about, right? I've always said I wanted to do the work that the little version of me probably needed in the world. And so those moments, though they're kind of far and few, they're so powerful, and kind of the reminder that though the work is really hard, we're doing it for the right reasons.
Well, that story gives me a big smile, and that's part of having this show and listening to people and leaders like you that have stories like that really, I'm sure, hit the listening audience too, because that I'm a little teary-eyed after hearing that, because that makes all these things almost worthwhile. I know you have a lot of separation from your children when you're in the Twin Cities, and those things that are hard, not just the work part, but the emotional part.
hmm I say often, I think the people who get overlooked the most, as I get thanked for my work, is actually the sacrifice of my kids. That they,
Mm.
though we talk about it and they think it's really cool, they miss out on mom time for me to go do this work for other generations. And so I just want to be better at acknowledging my kids. Gosh, now you're gonna make me emotional, Robert. Make me talk about my kids, but also acknowledging the sacrifice that they do for the work of Minnesota.
Well, we're here with State Representative Heather Keeler, who I believe is probably a really cool mom. And so we'll be back and talk a little bit more with the state representative. This is Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. Hi, it's Robert Pilot from Native Roots Radio. If you need new windows for your home or business, I highly recommend 952 Windows. They offer windows and doors with the longest warranties and Energy Star's #1 most efficient ratings. I can personally vouch for them, having known the owner for decades. They did a fantastic job on our second floor addition 20 years ago, installing windows, roofing, siding, and even adding a master bathroom. In my opinion, they're one of the most best kept secrets in remodeling. As Onyx and cabinet dealers, 952 Windows guarantees top quality products. Until now, 952 Windows thrived on referrals and the loyalty of satisfied Window-Light customers. They continue to support these customers by providing warranty parts for the 80,000 Windows sold since 1994. For unbeatable deals and trusted service on windows, doors, roofing, siding, kitchens, bathrooms, and more, call 952 Windows or visit 952windows.com.
Hi, I'm Chuck Manette, owner of Native Concrete and Masonry. With concrete and masonry adding substantial value to your home, it's always a great idea to repair your sidewalks or just add a beautiful new patio. Cracks or heaving in your sidewalks due to tree roots can be dangerous. Native Concrete and Masonry has helped clients across the metro to make their outdoor space safer and helped increase the value to their homes. For patios, sidewalks, driveways, or garage slabs, go to nativeconcretemasonry.com.
Imagine over 7,000 voices from around the globe coming together in harmony in Minneapolis. This summer, Gala Choruses Festival 2024 comes to Minnesota. It's the world's largest LGBTQ plus singing event. From July 10th through 14th, Minneapolis will be transformed into a vibrant city of song. Join 122 choruses from places as far as China, Estonia, Finland, Ukraine, and Taiwan for 5 unforgettable days of wall-to-wall concerts, workshops, and social events at world-class venues like Orchestra Hall, the Minneapolis Convention Center, and Central Lutheran Church. And don't miss Gala's first ever Trans Fusion Cabaret on Friday, July 12th. This show will uplift trans, non-binary, and intersex voices and feature Gala Festival singers performing alongside local singers. Feel the energy in person by purchasing tickets at galacourses.org or stream every performance live and on demand at galacourses.org. Celebrate love, diversity, and the power of music at Gala Choruses Festival 2024, where every voice matters. July 10th through 14th in downtown Minneapolis.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Did you hear me? I joined.
Yes, I could see it too on the other screen. I saw your neck went up like a wolf. I saw that.
I had to play the whole part. I had to make it sound the best that I could.
Hey, we're here with State Representative Heather Keeler. And Haley, I want to ask you something now. You've been with Native Roots Radio for well over a year. You know, what do you think of Heather? I mean, we always get excited when Heather okays a spot on Native Roots Radio because we know it's going to be good.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. I just got to say, the first time that I met Heather Keeler was at probably the MMIR something event at the Capitol. And that was the first time I heard her speak, as well as State Senator Mary Kunesh and Jamie Becker Finn, and all of our Native voices were there at the Capitol. And I mean, Heather's speech, I remember, just really stood out to me, and it really pulled on those heartstrings. So just kind of relating stories and all of that, and then getting to know Heather over the year. And, she's just real, and she's authentic, and she's honest. And I think those are more of the type of people that we need in spaces that represent us and speak for us with, other stuff going on. And I'm just really, really thankful to know her, and representation does matter, because I never considered running for office or even thought about it. And, I was like, that's never something I would do, never in a million years. And then, I see Heather do it, and it's really inspiring. And it just, makes me feel like someone like me can do that too.
You know what? One of the things I like about Heather too is that we're acting like Heather's not here right now.
Oh my gosh, this is like the hardest thing to sit through. It's like I'm getting
compliments. Well, you are what you are who you are. You know what I mean? There's no fakeness to you, and that comes across. And I just want to say this. We got a few more minutes, and then I'll hand it back over to you, Heather. I just want to say this. There was one time at the Capitol, and I want to say it was 2 or 3 years ago, that you said something during an MMIW speech, and it hit me, and I've been trying to quote you for these years about you telling your kids that you would never leave them. and what that meant, and it had to sink into me to go, "Oh, well, that means, people disappear and then the police say, well, they're probably out, with their boyfriend or drinking or they're leaving, they're sick of what's going on there, and they make all these excuses that aren't real."
Media plays such a big role in the narrative of who we are as Indigenous people. It's one of the reasons why I love Native Roots Radio so much, is because we get to speak our truth. We get to talk about really who we are and how we live in this world. But yeah, it was very clear to me as I started to travel, because again, I travel 4 hours one way to go to work. And I had worked in the MMIW, MMIR space prior to being elected, and had seen on a very regular basis how the media spins the story very differently. And I often go back, and when I'm in my Two Feathers world and I'm talking about it, I talk about Wyoming, because that's actually where my mom's from. We're from the Wind River Reservation. We're Eastern Shoshone. And the amount of Native individuals who went missing in 10 years was hundreds. And one gal went missing, and like the whole world went missing looking for her. And it was Gabby, and blonde haired, blue eyed, gal. And not that we don't need to look for everybody, but why aren't they looking for us? Why isn't the media telling our story? And when the media does, it's often late. It's often around a narrative that's untrue. They look at our maybe hard times in our life. And 20 years ago, we were an alcoholic, and I'm sure they went back to alcohol, or, they went with unsafe people. And so I had to make a very public statement that if for some reason I ever went missing, do not ever let my kids believe that it was a choice, because I would never choose to not come home to my kids. It's I work very, very hard, but at the end of the day, I always come home to my kids. And I never wanted the media or anybody to ever try to convince my kids that, I chose to leave. And so I think more of us need to stand up for that. And I think we need to say that more often in more spaces, because if you listen to the narrative, often there's a misleading story behind it, and it dehumanizes us in a different way. And I don't like that. And I work really hard to try to create our epidemic in a way that is meaningful. And so, yeah. And I get a lot of feedback about that statement, actually, over the 4 years that I've been doing this work.
Yeah, it was kind of like, I would never leave you. And that, like,
Mhm.
I don't know if I blacked out after that, because it hit me. I'm an emotional person. And it was just like, oh, absolutely. Wow. Yeah.
Because when I read those stories, I always think about the people that are left behind, and the people that are looking, and the people who never give up and love them forever. That the narrative that it was a choice for us not to come home is just so far from the truth. And we're a very loving community, and we love our relatives. And I think we need to acknowledge that better.
Yeah, you mentioned this too. That segue into that, Two Feathers, and I always want to give Two Feathers a shout out too, because give out the information to our vast listening audience and people listening to us and watching us on Facebook and YouTube, and we're on X too. I just wanted to say that we're getting a lot of people
Nice.
watching us on that dreaded X, which we used to call whatever it was.
Formerly known as, yeah.
Right. How can we get a hold of you with your work and talk a little bit about Two Feathers?
Yeah, it's fun because Haley and I were talking about this, I think last week, or I don't even remember. The path kind of back to like, who is just Heather? I think in the last couple years, because the goal was never to be a state representative. I actually it feels so far from the norm of who I am. But it's a title that gets taken into consideration a lot in my life, and really trying to figure out who am I? Who is Heather again? And I worked in Indian country for 25 years before ever being elected, in areas of education and healthcare, community engagement. I've been doing educational trainings for adults in those spaces, because often we know that the K-12 system does not educate us on the Indigenous history very well. Then we become adults and we make decisions in the world around education and healthcare, which are treaty rights that impact Indigenous people. And so I go out, and the main thing I do is I have a 1 hour or 3 hour keynote or workshop that's Indigenous 101, all the things you didn't know in K-12. And it really is a basic level overview of who we are as people, what the history is and some of our current issues are, and the reality of the timeline. I think often people assume these stories that we talk about, I'll use boarding schools as an example, is people think these are like 400 or 500, 600, 700 years ago, and the reality is like our uncles, our relatives, people are still alive who were forced in boarding schools. And so that's what I do. I love it. I love being a keynote speaker. I also do motivational speaking because, again, I think I've gone through a lot of pain in my life, as many Indigenous people have, to find a purpose to give back to my community. And so I speak about that in a empowering, emotional, and motivational way.
Facebook and email address, or
twofeathersllc.com is where you can find me. That's where you can send requests and we can chat about pricing. I'm pretty reasonable, and I work with all organizations because I think education is power.
Right on. Well, thank you so much, State Representative Heather Keeler. We and I know Haley and I are always excited when you can make it on here because we know it's going to be a great show, and then I don't have to work that hard. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then Haley and I get to hang out soon. Yay. See you in a little bit.
Yeah, right
come
on.
to the Red Lake powwow this weekend. We'll be up there.
I have FOMO.
Yeah, you should. We're going to have a blast.
All right, cool. Hey, this has been Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. Hey, Heather, hold on. Can you hang on after the show? I want to ask you something.
Sure.
All right. Hey, if you're listening to the show, you are part of the resistance from Chief Plentycoops. The ground on which we stand on is sacred ground. We need to resist, divest, join a group, run for office. We're still here. We are the 7th generation.
Free Leonard Peltier now.